Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Scott Lasky, and I am an application engineer here at Promess Incorporated. And with me, I have.
My name is Logan Bowlby, and I'm also an application engineer here at Promess. Today's topic of discussion is understanding flexible manufacturing concepts and how this can be achieved by adapting Promess workstations and other products into your assembly process. We will be covering a variety of workstations Promess has to offer and benefits that provide. The workstation is a scalable product that can go anywhere from a lab to a production floor to being reused and repurposed for another production application.
So, what exactly is flexible manufacturing? Really, I would describe it as, flexible manufacturing is a product or method that is designed to easily adapt to changes in your product that's being manufactured or made. Machines or systems can be configured to manufacture a variety of different parts and handle, quickly handle, different changes in the level of production. So before we get started, I'd just like to say too that we have a lot of the products and information that we're going over today. There's a lot of downloadable content on promessinc.com at our website that you can look and browse over this freely, whenever you have time. So when talking about what Promess kind of can offer for this flexible manufacturing, it's, I think of it as there's, custom, you have custom machines or, a science project, if you will, or a station that was designed to handle one specific part. So whatever your application or part is, machine is built from the ground up and its sole responsibility is to be able to handle or assemble that part. And, that's a special one-off machine to where the standard product that Promess offers can basically majority of the time do the same application, but it's a standard solution or standard product. So this is an off-the-shelf product that we don't have to put a lot of extra design or input into. So it's more cost effective in that regard, to where it's not something that's built specifically for one machine. So if you need to adapt to changes in your assembly, a new part model of different variations, it can something be easily switched or changed out versus having to rebuild the whole machine from the ground up. So talking about our standard workstations, we have basically what we use an EMAP system or an electromechanical assembly press. So all of our systems are fully servo systems, and they're very energy efficient. So our presses are all, we have a variety of presses that range from 0.2 kilonewtons, 40, 50 pounds, all the way up to 1,000 kilonewtons or over 200,000 pounds. And all of our presses are calibrated in tension and compression and are calibrated to 1% of their full range. They also have a built-in 2 to 3 times safety factor built into them. So if you have a 20 kilonewton press, the mechanics and ball screw of that press, can handle forces upwards of 60 kilonewtons. And then the motor is always rated to run in its continuous mode at peak torque or force. So meaning if you had a 20 kilonewton press and you pressed and applied to 20 kilonewtons of force, you're not overstraining the mechanics of the system. The motor's not being overstressed. It's running in its continuous mode. So we can hold that 20 kilonewton load all day long without stressing anything. So that makes these systems very robust. Lifetime calculations for a lot of these, in high volume application, are 10 to 20 plus years with just regular maintenance. And also, regarding the maintenance, we recommend, or the only real maintenance on these presses are greasing them every 250,000 cycles and then checking calibration once a year. So there's a variety of workstations that Promess has to offer. Our standard size 1 through size 5, as you may be looking at now. And really, again, these are all off-the-shelf products, and it really just comes down to the force requirements and the part or application that you want to assemble. So if it's a smaller systems, may use a smaller size workstations, or if it's a product or application that requires higher force, they would just be a larger footprint or a little bit larger of a workstation. If you want to add any sensors to these workstations or presses, so like an LVDT or an external load cell, those are always quickly easily added to any of our standard systems. Basically, external load cells, lots of times if you have a part that maybe you're doing multiple presses on one part, and some parts take 100 kilonewtons of force to press in a larger part, and then you have some smaller ones that might take a kilonewton or less to press in. We can adapt an external load cell onto the end of the press, and inside of our software and programming, you can determine which sensor you want to look at for feedback while that part's being assembled. So for smaller components, you don't lose any accuracy, and you can still assemble that with that high level of accuracy that's required to ensure it was a good part. And with our all these systems, they come with our Promess software, which is written and developed in-house. So we've been working on the software for many years, and we have a couple different variations of it, and it's very user-friendly software. So it's not like, you know, you need a degree in engineering or something like that in order to be able to operate and navigate the software. And it's something, again, that we always, any system that's ever purchased, you know, Promess is there to help you create the programs, give you some training, you know, teach you how to utilize the software and get the most value out of it. There's no PLC required with a lot of these stations. So whether it's going into a prototype lab or, you know, being used in the assembly line or somewhere in your production floor, that it's, you know, you don't have to have a PLC added to the station. I mean, there can be. It's, again, it's just another option that's available with it, but it's not something that is required. So with all of our workstations, typically, you know, you have all the safety is already built into it. So it's surrounded in a plexiglass enclosure. You might have light curtains or something in the front to prevent anyone from being underneath the press ram when the press is running, along with, you know, pass-fail lights, a work light, push button start, and there's some other different variations that we do offer as far as, you know, either light curtains, you know, maybe a swing door or just a regular open and shut door. So there's a lot of different variations in the workstations that we do offer. So I don't know, Logan, if you want to talk about some of those.
Yeah, there's a few different options for our standard workstations. We have 4-post configuration, we have a C-frame configuration, and then we also have a benchtop configuration. Each one has certain benefits versus the other ones. The C-frame, a little bit more of an open frame to it, so it's easy to be integrated into a production cell, but then it can also be a standalone station. The 4-post has a little bit larger of a T-slot plate at the bottom of it, so you can have a little bit larger parts, larger nesting at the bottom. Also, it is more of a linear deflection, a very minimal deflection, but more of a linear. And then our benchtop is a small footprint design for a work area on benchtop or in a lab. Those go up to a 12 kilonewton.
So if you did have, like, say, an product or part, you know, that took a really, really light load and it was a small footprint, what kind of system would you recommend for that?
Probably benchtop.
Yeah.
That way it doesn't take up too much floor space, and you can probably already put it on a workside table that you already have on your plant floor.
It's also beneficial that, you know, it's easily moved. It's not something you need to get a crane out or something like that. It's a smaller footprint, so if it does need to be transferred to a different location, you know, it's not a major hassle to move a complete machine.
The setup and install of all of our workstations is very simple and quick. Kind of a plug and play scenario. All the customer has to do is supply main power. Once you have the main power, then you can kind of turn on the system and then start programming right away. Some other systems that we offer are also our robot press and H-frame configuration. Our H-frame is designed to be able to support our larger presses, from our 500 kilonewton all the way up to our meganewton. Has a large area underneath and then adjustable base height as well. Our robot press come in sizes anywhere from 3 kilonewton to 50 kilonewton. The ability to press in multiple parts in a single station is what the robot press was designed for. And then it has a backstop to reduce the required payload from the robot.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that integrated backstop is really, you know, key for this robot press. So if you have a robot that's holding, you know, a press or an EMAP, it's not going to be able to hold the force that's required when the press is, you know, assembling or pressing it apart. It would not be able to hold that amount of load. So by having some sort of backstop or bridge that the top of the press rests against, that then absorbs the load, and the robot more or less goes into like a float mode of just kind of holding its position, but it's not seeing any of that force that's being applied to the part. So one of the biggest benefits that, you know, a lot of our customers have utilized with this robot press is being able to press in multiple components into one cell without having to rotate the part. So maybe you have like a bearing cup, a seal, and the dowel pin that all need to be pressed into transmission housing or whatever the case is. And that part comes into the station. The part can then just be clamped down, and then the robot press then the robot would orientate the press in whatever location up against a certain backstop to maybe, you know, press in something, maybe a part from the side, and then it can go above the part and press in a dowel pin or a seal or something from above, and vice versa. So it allows that flexibility of doing all these various options without having to pick up the part and try to rotate it and then, you know, backing up the part and things like that. The part stays in a fixed location, and the press is what's doing the movement to achieve all the various presses. And also, speaking of just, flexible manufacturing, if you think of, the standard way of maybe doing something like that would be you would have one station that presses in your bearing cup, the next one does a seal, and then the third station does a dowel pin. So now you have 3 stations that all have to be built up to do what can be done in one cell. And if one of those stations goes down, then the whole assembly line could shut down. And so we've seen iterations of this where maybe there's 2 of these cells, flex cells with robot presses that are doing the exact same press. So, and if one of those goes down, the other station is still able to achieve all those presses without stopping your manufacturing or your assembly line on the plant floor. So there's definitely a lot of benefits to it. And again, it's just another option of that, that flexible manufacturing that the industry is really leaning towards nowadays, and how it can be achieved using Promess equipment. And then we also do have some more tailored solutions too that we can discuss.
Our gantry workstation is a tailored solution. So our gantry workstation actually has about the same size footprint as our 4-post and C-frame. The biggest difference is that our press is mounted onto an X and Y slide. And that X and Y slide is controlled through a servo motor that you also control through our Promess software, our Ultra Pro software, which is our multi-axis software. And what is unique about this is that you control the X and Y and the press axis all through the same software, all in the same step programming. So that way, when you have to adjust the X and Y and then want to press a certain point on there, you do all this same programming at the same point. And this gives you the opportunity to press multiple parts within a same station. Another press that we have is our platen press, which is synced motion with multiple presses. So you have 2 or 3 or 4 presses synced onto the same platen. And with our Ultra Pro software, you can move these presses up and down at the same time. And this gives you more of a larger area of force that can be equally spread out with both presses or with multiple presses. And these can actually do up to 2,000 kilonewtons, which is 450,000 pounds.
So yeah, again, if you have some sort of part, maybe it's 4 feet long or whatever it is, and you need to evenly press on throughout that whole 4 feet area. And the typical way would be you mount one press in the middle of a plate, and the plate comes down to press on that. And really what you lose with deflection and everything, the load that's being applied in the middle of the part versus what's going to be applied at the end of the plate is going to differ. It's not going to be an evenly distributed load. So by utilizing these platen presses that we call them, you can have 2, 3, 4 presses all mounted to this 4-foot plate, and using the synchronized motion and joint axis technology that Promess adapts into our software, we can come down and all those presses will evenly apply a load to that plate to assemble your part or whatever the application is. Also, we have what we call our index or dial table, so that can be utilized with the workstation. So lots of time this is beneficial, for cycle time, instead of just having, maybe an operator goes in or whatever and loads one part into the station and then they run and assemble it. With the dial table, she can be doing multiple functions at once, or they can be. So if while one part's being assembled inside the workstation, inside the light curtain, on the outside of the dial table, the next part's being loaded and getting ready. And then when the cycle's done, the press returns up, the dial table rotates, and then you do the same process over and over again. So you might have 2 or 3, 4 different nests of tooling on one dial table, to where everything, maybe we're doing multiple presses or multiple functions, in each nest, or it can just be, for cycle time reasons. So and that's all controlled through our Ultra Pro multi-axis software. So you don't need a PLC or, certain other systems to be controlling it while the press is running. It's all done through Promess, which makes it, very easy. You're not trying to understand or having to learn multiple systems, knowing PLC logic, knowing, whatever the dial table, and then knowing a press software. So it's all built into one software, which makes it very user-friendly and very easy and efficient for the customer to use. We do have a lot of other tailored solutions that we offer with, maybe a dual C-frame workstation where you have multiple presses mounted into one C-frame or one workstation, just depending on the application and what you require. It's definitely things that Promess tackles and can provide a solution for. Maybe if the press is mounted underneath the workstation, it doesn't really matter the orientation that you mount our servo systems in. It's really not going to affect anything as far as the life cycle or capabilities of our systems. They're all calibrated and push and pull. So it's you can mount them in any rotation. And we've done a lot of workstations where maybe one press is mounted underneath the workstation and one above, to where they're both pressing or compressing apart at the same time. Sometimes a bottom press could come up and press the part and then be used as the backstop for the top press to come down and then do another process or assembly. So really, I mean, we have all these standard products off the shelf, and then we also can tailor them, specifically for a customer need or application. So there's a lot of different options you have with Promess. And I guess some of the questions you might have is, how do I know what's best for me? And if you were to want to purchase a press, or where do you start? And typically, what we always try to recommend customers do or utilize is our PDC here in our headquarters in Brighton, Michigan. And so our PDC is our process development center, and really it's pretty much the first step. If you're either a new existing customer, a new application, or just you want to retrofit an old application or update it, from a servo or hydraulic, or to a servo from a hydraulic press or whatever it may be, the PDC is typically the first place that we recommend going. So this is something to where you could send us parts into Promess, and basically we can assemble them and let the force requirements needed, and whatever else is needed in the assembly process. We can assemble that and send that information and data back to you. And we also really encourage that you come to our facility in Brighton and actually run the parts with us. So it's great. I mean, I always like to work hands-on with parts and get a better understanding versus we can do meetings, Zoom calls, and all that stuff as well. But I think it best suits you to get a good feel for what Promess has to offer by working hands-on with our system. So if you were to come down to Promess, to test and run some parts for whatever product or application you have, we basically block out the lab for the whole day or multiple days if are needed. And we invite you guys to come down here. And again, everything this is all free of charge. So we don't charge for any of this. Really, this is just designed to best ensure you get the correct size press, and that you know exactly what Promess has to offer and what you'll be getting. So I don't know, I can't tell you how many times, a customer said, we do this with our hydraulic press, it should take 4,000 pounds to assemble this part. And we get the parts and we run them, and maybe it's only several hundred pounds. So right off the bat, we're already saving them money by reducing the size of the equipment they need to purchase to assemble this part. Or, vice versa, maybe it takes 8,000 and they were off. So instead of getting this all the way to your production environment and then realizing, oh, the press isn't capable of doing what I want, I need to upsize, it's you ensure you're going to get the correct part right off the bat. And also with the PDC, so when you come in here, when we work, we basically will set up a press program in our software to assemble your parts. So whatever pass-fail criteria is needed, being able to detect bad parts, putting a bad part in the station and pressing it and saying, hey, Promess can detect this, and I'll show you exactly the strategy or monitoring strategy that we'd use to ensure that one of these would never get out in the field. So we can develop that program and everything ahead of time. So if you did purchase the system later down the line, now we already know the integration with the workstations is very simple and easy, just basically hooking up your main power. You already have your program written, so maybe it's a matter of just tweaking some parameters in it and you're off and running. So the setup and installation and going from purchasing a system to using it in production or in a lab environment is normally pretty short and quick. And again, with all of these systems being standard products, that's the lead times, the deliveries of Promess is, we've even with all the supply issue and everything going on, we've made ensured that our lead time and delivery times haven't not changed. So we still offer our standard lead times for all of these products, and it's not something you have to wait half a years to get built and designed and get done. So by having it on the shelf, it's ready and readily available to anyone that wants to purchase a Promess system.
Our workstations are also available with our remap system as well, which is our rotational EMAP. So you have linear and rotational capabilities with it, with torque, transducer, and integrated load cell. So it can feel both ways, rotationally and linearly. Which all of our configurations of C-frame and 4-post can have our remap on them as well.
And also too, it's, like Logan said, with the remap, so we also have torque workstations. So just doing rotational force or torque, we have those available, and it's You know, it's again, whatever system or whatever components are being used, you know, with dial tables, gantries, remats, presses, it's all controlled through the same software. So it's not something different for, you know, a different press use a different software. Everything's done through the same software, which makes, you know, that's part of the user-friendly ability that we have and we can offer. It's, you know, it's a good software that is very powerful and can do a lot of very advanced features or basic things, and it's all utilized and there for you to access. So it's one of the main benefits with Promess, you know, being able that we write and develop it in-house, you know, especially even, you know, additional features or certain functions that you want the software to do. Lots of times we're able to accommodate those needs because we have a whole team of software engineers, you know, that write and develop this. And we're constantly looking at making improvements or adding features and everything to help improve our customers' lives, basically. Also, one of the, you know, a huge benefit of just going with Promess, we always kind of touch on is our support. So Promess offers 24/7, 365 support. So meaning, you know, if you run this 3 shifts or something like that, or in the middle of the day or on a weekend or even holidays, you know, there's an engineer that's on call at Promess. So our standard working hours, you know, are 8 to 5, and you can always call into Promess and talk to an engineer about any questions you may have or issues. And if it's after those hours and you call in, you basically your voicemail or whatever you leave gets forwarded directly to an engineer's phone. So you get a return call very shortly. So you always have someone available to talk to, you know, whenever the time may be, to help you work through any problems or issues that you may have. So yeah, I think that kind of covers it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have any questions?
Yeah, Q&A. So how much does a benchtop workstation say? So, or does a benchtop workstation weigh? Sorry. It really just depends on the size that you want. So again, we have some standard, the throat area or the, you know, the open area that you need and working, but it can weigh anywhere from, you know, a couple hundred, you know, just 150 pounds to, you know, 300 or 400 pounds. It really just depends. I don't know all the weights off the top of my head, but I'm assuming we can get that information. If you have an email into Promess, you know, that can be provided for you.
Can a Promess torque spindle be used with a workstation? Yes. Yeah, torque spindle can be used with a workstation. I don't know if you want to go more.
Yeah, I don't think we shared any of the slides today had one, but if you do go on our website, we have under our workstations, you can see it. So it's a little different design. Most of the time with the torque workstations, they're going to be on some sort of X and Y slide that's kind of mounted vertically, so to where the system can move around. So it's definitely can be done on a workstation, and it's you know, normally not an issue, just depending on what, you know, how it needs to be utilized for your application.
Can I put a benchtop workstation on a cart to roll around a lab? Absolutely. That the benchtop workstation is designed to be able to be moved around and used in different areas of your plant or lab.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, I mean, a lot of times we find it's utilized in like low volume, high mix applications. So, you know, one week you need to be over in this area of the plant and you got 1,000 parts that need to be assembled. And maybe the next week you're in a different section or somewhere else and you got a couple hundred that need to be assembled that week. So it's you know, the small footprint that it makes and its flexibility being able to move easily is, you know, the greatest benefits of those kind of systems. Can your robot press design be coupled and then recoupled from the robot? Yeah, actually, that is one of the bigger benefit that we've added with that solution. So basically what they're asking, or the questions regards to, if you had a press that's mounted on the end of a robot arm, the robot could technically set the press down, decouple from it, maybe go and pick up another tool to do some sort of assembly or application, and then go back and couple back to that press and then pick it off and continue running. So that is another, again, something that, you know, we were able to develop and do because we do all of our own software, that it's now just another standard product Promess has to offer.
What are your current lead times for this hardware, press, motor, cables, and drive? I believe it's 14 weeks lead
14
time.
weeks is the standard. And again, you know, with all the shortages and supply chain issues that, you know, everyone in the world is experiencing, Promess has really put a big emphasis on bulking up our inventory and keeping all of these products in stock. So even if, you know, something, it's, you know, so our lead times are not affected really at all by by all the shortage we see. I mean, yes, we do feel some of it, but we're prepared and we've worked on our due diligence in advance to ensure that this doesn't affect the customer. So yeah, 13 weeks is kind of our standard, and honestly, most times it can be done faster. But it's, you know, we always meet our standard, and it's pretty rare that Promess will be late on deliveries. Does Promess offer a standard solution at high force levels? Yeah. So again, whether it's a single standalone, you know, Promess can do workstations up to 1,000 kilonewtons, or if we're doing something, you know, we've done stations up to 2,000 kilonewtons that utilize that plat press technology. So you need to apply 2,000 pounds to a part. We can, you know, add 400 or 500 kilonewton presses or something like that, depending on the surface area, to where they all combine and run in that with that synchronized motion and joint access technology that can achieve those higher level of forces.
If we change applications, will you guys help with the programming? Yes, we will. If you call, set it up, we can come out there to your facility, help you with any changes you need to make, whether it's upgrading a Promess system or just upgrading from a hydraulic to a Promess system. We'll help you set up your program if it's multiple parts, one part, and get you guys rolling and running.
Yeah, and I mean, really, Promess, you know, our software is capable of storing hundreds of part programs. So, I mean, obviously, or honest, when you first purchase a system, we'll always kind of be involved in helping you get the first one set up and running, especially in new customers. And then majority of the time, though, we typically find that the customers can make changes on their own. So you have a set program, and maybe you have a new part model or something you want to run. It's really as simple as doing like just a file save as, or program save as. You copy and paste the program, and then maybe tweak a few parameters. But you know, Promess is always available over the phone, or we can come out for service, you know, to travel and work with you at your facility to do some training and programming changes. But for majority of the time, you know, once a customer uses our software for a little bit, it's normally friendly and easy enough to understand that they can get along with making a lot of those on their own.
How long does it take to change your system programs to a new application? It really depends on the application that it's being changed to, but it shouldn't be too difficult or too time consuming. But it really just all depends on the type of application that you're doing and what your application was before.
So yeah, programs can be set up to where it's just a simple, you know, file open, or we have program switcher screens to where it's, you know, you just press a simple button and it could switch and open a new program up. Or if you have a PLC or something, you know, a PLC can then remotely call up programs. So there's a lot of different options and variations. It's, you know, we have all these different, you know, options and everything to make the customer's life easier. So depending on what best suits your application, typically Promess can provide it. So, you know, normally you give us your feedback of what you're looking for and how you envision the cell running, and then we kind of can tailor that solution to you. Our next webinar is May 18th, and that's going to be all about programming a workstation. So hopefully you guys tune in for that. And thank you all for joining today, and
thank you.
it's been fun.